Hi guys, welcome back to Which Way to the Broom. Today we are having a special episode. I am sitting here talking with Mr. Koetting again, or Eric. Forgot you like being called Mr. Koetting. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about the 9 gatekeepers and this path working he's been working with, and talking about Lucifuge and who is Lucifuge. So the video that I'm going to be referencing to a lot is Abaddon Mocks Me, and you can find that through his YouTube channel. So I guess let's just get into it. How you doing?
I'm doing spectacular, thank you.
All right. So let's just get into it. Can you tell me and my viewers, like, who is Lucifuge? Like, what does he do exactly? Like, let's get the scope on this guy.
Yeah, so all right, so Lucifuge is like he's not mentioned very often in the classical grimoires, like, or anywhere really. And so it's interesting as I'm working with these gatekeepers. You know, I started out with Belial, and then Belial's like, "Hey, work with Azazel." I'd heard of Azazel, and also Abaddon and Maimon. I'm like, who the hell are those guys? And so I started looking them up, and most of the gatekeepers actually don't have a huge presence in a lot of the like, say, classical grimoires or occult treatises. They do seem to be very powerful spirits. Like Maimon, for instance, has said that he is second only to Lucifer. So in the grimoires that consider Lucifer the emperor, Maimon's right there. Same thing with Lucifuge. Lucifuge is he's by some counts considered to be the scribe of hell, but a lot of accounts actually give him credit for being the one who makes a pact. So if you're going to make a pact with the devil, and you just perform a general pact ritual, it's Lucifuge that actually shows up. It's Lucifuge that will sign the pact with you. So and so in that way you can say that Lucifuge is like one of the faces of the devil. But I mean, we can say that about all of these spirits. We can say that about
anyone. We can say that about anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, so I actually get into this a lot with different, demonologists about like the hierarchy. Does it like actually exist? Is it something that we just perceive in place, from our own human understanding, or is it? What do you think?
Yeah, we can't really put. Well, I guess we can. We have put our like social structure and kind of exported it to our understanding of these beings. I mean, to the point of even giving them like military or regal ranks and stuff like that. And that's okay. I mean, we're trying to understand a subject that's really incomprehensible. And so, we're going to use the best terminology that we can, but that doesn't make it the reality of the situation. So yeah, the way that I've kind of liked to see it, the best analogy that I've been able to come up with is that we could call the devil, which isn't even Satan. Satan's one of the names or one of the permutations of this, but the devil, the adversarial force, the power of darkness itself is like a river, like the Mississippi River. And it, as it runs its course, it shoots off these little rivers off to the sides. Those little rivers off the sides, mind you, that's feeding the entire landmass. So those little rivers are the many different embodiments of these different demons, these different gatekeepers. That it's not like they're not as separate as you and I seem to be separate. Mainly because they don't have bodies, because they don't have, they're not limited to a form. And so they are energy that kind of intermingles, but it's different enough energy formed in a different enough way that we can consider these to be different beings. So as far as the hierarchy goes, I think maybe with that analogy, if the Mississippi.
Yeah, I see your analogy. Yeah.
Yeah. And so they're all working together, but they're working in different pathways. Now, I asked Azazel that question when I was doing my original work with him, like 2007 or 8, whenever I was working with Azazel. And he said, because I asked him the exact same thing, because I'm seeing all this it's almost like if you don't understand the hierarchy, you don't know what God to call on, because that's the one that rules over the spirit. The ceremony's not going to work or whatever. There's all those questions. So I threw it out to Azazel and was like, all right, so what's the real hierarchy? And he says the hierarchy is as follows: the operator and everything else in existence. And so he's basically saying, as you're the one that's performing the ritual. You're the one performing the evocation. You are God. You're God, not just to that being, you're God to all of existence. And so in one way, that's saying, that's putting the weight squarely on our shoulders to take charge of our realities. But it's also I think it's a statement of, a statement that's really interesting about our ability to actually create reality as we observe it. And so, yeah. But that's, like most of the answers you get from these beings, they're riddles. Like, you have to sit and decode it. I'll read through the books that I write, because when I write, I'm like, I shut my brain off and I just let it flow through. So I don't even feel like it's my writing. And so I'll read through these books, and years and now, a decade almost later from writing the Book of Azazel, I'll still read through it and see things I didn't see before. I'll still be trying to decode the mystery, because it's just like a transmission.
Dude, I feel that. So I used to write a lot of poetry, and a friend of mine would actually read through it more often than I would do it. And there would be events in my life where it was like I was predicting it in my previous poetry versus something that's recently happening. And I wouldn't see it, but she would see it and she'd point it out, and I'd go back through and I'd really look at it. And I'm just like, dude, when you do, I always tell people, whenever they ask me what's advice that you give a beginner, I say record everything, record it, because you're going to go 3-4 years down the road and you're going to look back at something and you're going to read the dates match up to different dates. And it's crazy how it all interconnects. And it's just so much easier to remember things if you write it down. That's what I say, because it really does. It's surprising. It's shocking, actually.
Just to jump in right there is, so I used to do this thing where, this was several years ago, where I'd walk. I gave up the car I was driving, and I gave it up. Lucifer says, you ought to start walking and stop driving, as I'm in this huge path working with him when I was 19, 20 years old. I'm all, man, honestly, I had just barely learned how to drive. I had just barely gotten the car that I wanted. I'm all, I don't want to walk everywhere. Mm-hmm. He's like, yeah, it'd be best for you. And at that point, I'd already turned my life over to him and to whatever I was being taught. And it was the next day after he came to me, told me that. The next day I get in this car accident, a freak car accident where it completely demolishes the cars. I was rebuilding a 1965 Chevy Bel Air. It was so beautiful. And so it demolishes it. And Lucifer's voice comes in. He's like, I told you, you should drive, or you should walk more. I'm like, all right, so I'll walk more. So I spent 2, maybe 3 years without driving. I just walked everywhere I had to go. And that was awesome, because what it allowed me to do was to do what I guess is traditionally called a walking meditation, where I would get myself into a meditative state and then walk and have a conversation going on in the back of my mind with spirits, or with just whatever. There's actually one voice that if I were to say it's any being, it's the voice of God, but it's not God as people understand it. It's my higher self or something, but it's not it's completely different than having a conversation with the spirit. It's just I put the question out there, and then the knowing of it comes in. And so I would spend all of my time just walking around in this state, always having conversations with the spirits. And one of my friends, anyways, asked if I was writing any of it down, if I get home and journal it or recording it anyhow. And I'm all, no, it's just for me. And she's like, no, here's the thing, if you, it is, and then you can look back and you can see your own revelations, but also, especially with the internet allowing us to do the kind of instant communication that's available, one of the most powerful things we can start doing right now is sharing these experiences, because what we're seeing is the weird conversations I have with the Zazel that I think I'm crazy and maybe even I'm making this shit up or I'm hallucinating. I put it out there, and sure, you get those couple of voices are oh yeah, you suck. But then you have even more voices that are wait a minute, I had the exact same experience, or Zazel told me the exact same thing. So Yeah. So recording it, writing it down for your own benefit, for sure. And I would say if you've got the courage to do it, throw it out there online, share it with people. I've got the Become a Living God forum. I don't put a lot of trust in Facebook or anything, but I would definitely hit up some private forums and put your experiences out there and see what comes back from that.
You would be surprised about like the private forums that are out there. Like there's different, well, not just Facebook. I mean, like I have a few Facebook groups that I favor, but most of them are Cult Kitten. She's definitely my favorite. Her groups on Facebook are literally the best. But any other group on Facebook, I fucking avoid like the plague. Okay. Yeah. Okay. But your private online forums that you find like deep in the interwebs, I would definitely, hit those up. But I want to jump back where you said earlier that Lucifuge was more like a scribe and how he's the one that you actually go to make pacts with. I just wanted to say that is so fitting because he's a scribe, technically, if that's what you want to put it as. So, so he's basically writing down everything that's of importance. And so when you make a pact, whenever I make pacts, I technically like write out what I'm looking for and present it to the spirit or being that I'm wanting to work with. And I'd be like, do you agree? And then they say, yes, no, adjust. Yes, no, adjust. And that's basically what he's doing. So I just want to so fitting. It's so fitting, really.
Yeah, well, so what's interesting is one of the many interesting things I should say is as I'm looking at these gatekeepers, they start taking on, or they start showing me some of their previous incarnations, if you will, because I've come to, I guess, accept that these are actual beings. Like they're not creations of the subconscious. They're not, it's not as psychological, I think, as a lot of New Age magicians would have you believe. Like you call on them, they surprise you. First off, like it's hard for, if you're imagining something, like if you just sit here and use your imagination, it's really hard to surprise yourself. When you're having a conversation with Azazel, and I'm using Azazel just for example because he's just out of my for whatever reason, but there's that bounce back of the answer coming often before you even finished asking the question. The answer becomes sometimes something you're like, oh wow, what does that even mean? Or once again, our imaginations they're really amazing, but they're
limited. Yeah, like let me jump on that. So there'll be like a time or so when I'm sitting down and I'm trying to work with like a companion or something, and like they fucking do surprise you because like I'll be sitting there, basically just being like, hey man, like what's up, come visit with me, let's talk. And he'll just show up and he'll do the weirdest shit. Like one time I was sitting there and he was like rubbing my legs. He randomly just showed up and was rubbing my legs. And then he like sat next to me and was like, I don't know, like I've worked with him for a long time and I've known him for a long time. So he's really not afraid to touch me, and I'm like perfectly fine with it. It's acceptable. And so like, God, it's just really interesting because when I first met him and when we first started really talking, he was like really curious, but he wouldn't touch me much. And then, he shows up and he touched me, and like just the manner of it, it's just, you can't really fucking imagine it. It's just some weird shit.
How physical does the touch feel?
Literally, like, I used to have, it's complicated, but I have had two companions in my life. The first one, Simon. When I was like really close to him, I actually conjured him myself about last year around this time, actually. And I think it was because I asked Vassago to help me with that. And, because this is what Vassago is good for, and he's great. But since, I don't know, but the energy with Simon was, I can't really explain it because it's like when he touched me, I was a fucking candle. And when he touched me, I just melted into him. That's literally how it felt. It's like my energy was being drawn into him, but it was like a fluidity of like a whirlpool almost. It's crazy. So like I could literally feel him in my presence, like another human being, but not there. Anytime I would do workings with him, it's like I could see him without him actually being there. Like it was a really strong connection. And with this other one, his name is Still. Vastil is almost the same way, but I'm not as bonded to him as I was with Simon. But I could still feel him touching me, and I can still kind of see him there, but it's more if he's touching me then I can really see him. But when he touches me, you can feel the touch. And like, man, a lot of times whenever people ask me about if they're actually there, I always tell them about the first experience I encountered with Lucifer. So this was back like 2 years ago when I was really starting to be interested in the left-hand path. And, you know, my first instinct was Lucifer, of course. So I actually used just a tinfoil evocation. I don't know if you've heard of this method, but you have a square tinfoil in your hand and you draw the sigil and then you place your offering on the sigil. So like, you know, yeah, as you know, chemistry, you know, physics, all that stuff. Tinfoil actually heats up on your hands because of, you know, your own body heat, but the tinfoil was hotter than what it should have been on my hand. And so I'm sitting there, you know, a meditative stance like this, you know, sitting on my bed, and I just feel this weight next to me, like someone was sitting on the bed, and then I hear this tinfoil like crumbling, like someone was holding my hand, like there was pressure being applied to the tinfoil. Like, yeah, crazy. And man, as someone who was, you know, coming out of the Wiccan phase, it scared and just surprised the fuck out of me. I mean, dude, like it was crazy. And I'm just like, okay, so I can do this. This is fine. This is what I was sitting here thinking. I'm like, this is fine. I can do this. And I'm just like, yo, so I guess we should meditate, yeah? And then he's like, sure, yeah, why the fuck not? And so I'm sitting there trying to meditate. And I've always, whenever I was younger, I really had problems with meditation. And I literally can feel him like leaning over on my bed, like looking at me like straight in the face. And he just touches me on my third eye. And I just feel this shock, like, you know, like when you like shock somebody, when you touch somebody. Yeah, that's what it was on my forehead. And I mean, when people, they ask if they're actually there, I say yes, but they're not there in like a Hollywood way. But yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. The only thing is like these experiences are beyond what Hollywood can put on film. Like, yeah, that's why. So Guillermo del Toro does awesome movies, awesome TV shows. You know, he's a really creative, imaginative fellow. And I'm watching what was that with Hellboy? I was watching the first couple of Hellboy movies, and I was like, you know, I hated the way he portrayed Samael. I'm like, that doesn't look anything like Samael, man. But at the same time, like as I'm sitting there criticizing it, and whoever I was watching the movie with is like, dude, like it's a movie. You know, they can't put like the impossible shit that comes through, because it's almost like if people remember the movie Lawnmower Man, where he's like in the holographic universe and receiving these uploads. Basically, it's just like waves and waves of information hitting him. And when you kind of step back from the experience of the evocation, look at it, that's kind of what's happening. Like the spirit might be talking to you or whatever, but there's it is waves of information that hit you. Crazy. The visions of them can shift pretty intensely. You know, they're not really. I mean, you can put them into a solid form, but they shift it pretty easily. So, but anyways, with Lucifuge, as I'm looking at these different beings, they have appeared in all these different civilizations. Every society out there has them, and they usually are the anti-god, the liberators. And Lucifuge, one of obvious permutations has been Thoth of Egypt, as well as Ningazida of the Sumerians. Quetzalcoatl, I'm pretty sure links up very similarly with it. And all these beings are not only the creators of the human soul, that whatever it is that makes human beings different from everything else, that this is the being, Lucifuge is the being that gave that to us. And along with that came language. And so he is, in all of his different embodiments, he's the father of language. And language itself is magical in every aspect of it. You know, you write something down. Just writing something down is in itself a spell. And that's why specifically women were not allowed to read or write for quite a while by the church. So
that is that I just want to jump on that. That's fascinating because like, because I'm sitting here having this conversation with you and I'm applying what you're saying and like reflecting it in my own practice. And I write things down so much. I mean, like literally before we started our video, I'm just like, hold on, let me write this down. Like I write things down so often, and I actually use my writing in offerings, spellwork packs, as I talked about a second ago. Like maybe I should work with Lucifuge because like there's just so much in common there. I wanted to jump on with things that you have in common. So I really wanted to ask, when you were talking about Abaddon calling out reality as bullshit, do you like agree with his stance? Like, I felt like I did because I'm just like, man, it really is bullshit.
Yeah, oh man, it's all right. So as when I'm working with these beings, it starts out almost every time. It starts out with that I approach them. They're external from me. I'm opening these gates and calling them through different means of contacting them, and then gradually, as it moves towards the end of the 3-month working, they're no longer outside of me at all. That I become in a way possessed by them on a semi-permanent basis. I mean, they're all. I don't at this point, I don't need to call them up. I just need to turn my attention to them within myself, and there they are. And so, in the process of that, I absolutely lose myself, whoever I thought I used to be, and for that 3 months, I become them really gradually and more. And so by the end of this, the last 3 months, I definitely believed, I felt the way that Abaddon feels about reality, or the way that he posits that. And I think that a good deal of his, the way he approaches that and his philosophy is it's all a teaching tool. It's one of the things is it's teaching me to not be so attached to anything. That we have these. We have the lie inside of us telling us that we're not capable of doing certain things, or that we're limited in some pretty heavy ways, or that we absolutely need a thing or a person or an event in order for us to be whole, and to put all that aside. Now, with that, in talking to one of my clients, this guy is, one of the cool things about having clients that I get to do my consultations with on a repeated basis is we tend to teach each other quite a bit. And I was talking to him about attachment and having that negative, needy attachment. He says, there is a difference between attachment and connection, and there absolutely is. And that Abaddon's insistence is that you lose the attachment, but not necessarily the connection. And so, but in order to do that, in order to truly be connected with anybody or anything, or even yourself, you do have to, let them go, let it go, and just accept whatever is in the present. And that has been an extremely transformative way of seeing things. Do I think it's all pointless and meaningless? I think that's. No. If it seems like it is, I think I have the belief that it all seems really, really absurd, but that's just because I don't understand it fully yet. Maybe I never will. And so even that is in itself absurd. Like the whole absurdist philosophy is basically that the truth is completely beyond our comprehension, and so the most absurd thing you can do is seek after it. But yeah, that's the human nature.
Yeah, I just whenever you called that out, it just really piqued my attention because I don't know, I felt the same. I was like, man, same though. So I want to talk. Let's jump back into the gatekeepers. Can you tell us who are the 9 gatekeepers, and maybe talk about a few and what they do?
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. After we're off of this conversation, I'm going to do a podcast about this exact topic, where I'm going to go through and kind of give a little description of each one and whatever.
Yeah.
So the gatekeepers. First off, there are 9 gatekeepers, and the 9 of them are kind of grouped together. So it's a group of 4. The first group of 4, which is Belial, Amaimon, Azazel, and Abaddon. And so Belial is, I guess, one of the translations of his name is without a master. Another translation is the worthless one. And so what Belial really helps you do is smash your shackles, whatever those are. So
Yeah, my fiance works with Belial actually, and yeah, Belial's pretty chill. One of my favorite things that my fiance has told me about his workings with Belial is that Belial prefers offerings that you would rather keep than to give. So like, my boyfriend or my fiance actually went out and like bought a bottle of whiskey because he used to be like a severe alcoholic, and he would, give the whole fucking thing of whiskey to Belial, and it was like a really big deal, and he got really good results with it. It was really cool. So I guess, huh?
How does he do that? Is he pouring it out, or is he leaving it on an altar, or what? How does he actually offer up?
Yeah, he has an altar downstairs in the basement. I'm not, he kind of just like, how you were talking about how you would walk and meditate. He kind of does this where he sits down and talks with Belial throughout the day. I guess Belial just really is fanatic about his energy. They really do match really well. And so he talks with Belial an awful lot and does most of his workings just speaking with him randomly, like alone when he's at work or something. And then for the whiskey, I know that he actually took it to his altar downstairs, and offered it. But he doesn't, I don't know, he's not like a sit-down formal kind of practitioner like I am, which I thought was really interesting, because I'm just like, that's not the way I do things, but you do you.
That's funny, yeah. No, and I'll tell you what, that is the key of like, in my opinion, real black magic is you experiment with everything. And so my buddy Mike Pierce, he's got a whole philosophy called rootist yoga, and so he teaches yoga, and he studies every discipline out there that you can imagine. And he is, in my opinion, an enlightened being. But he has this whole philosophy of rootism, that as you experience things, you go about your life, you try to expose yourself to as much as you can, and the things that are supposed to be part of your existence are going to take root. That you're going to find that, like, you take this from the Baptists, and you take this from the Satanists, and this from the yogis or whatever, and you kind of make your rounds, and you're not. It's not necessarily meant for you to take the entire thing. The entire thing was for the person who created it, but little pieces here and there of everything are what needs to be added to our whole repertoire.
Yeah, I feel that. I guess let's continue talking about the gatekeepers. So you have your first 4, correct?
Yeah. Wow, I get off topic really easy.
No,
sorry.
No, me too, man.
Yeah. So the first 4. So yes, you got Belial without a master. I'll tell you what, I couldn't work with him for a very long period of time. I mean, 3 months was about my cap, because he's I'm Pisces, and I'm all chill and relaxed, but Belial's really Scorpio. He's really
yeah, he's out there.
Yeah. So
it was just so funny, because my fiance is also a Pisces, and I just man, but David, he's like really chaotic. I mean, he went through a fuck ton during his childhood. He's about, he was born in the 80s, grew up in the 90s. I mean, he went through a lot as a kid. So I think that's why his head is like a Scorpio, but his body, he's Pisces. But I mean, as for me, I'm a Gemini, so I'm kind of split, and I mold easy to things, I think.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, when you actually get, and I myself, I don't do astrology. It's too much math. It's too much science. But I know people who do, who are really, really good at it. And so, I'll go have different charts drawn. When you get your natal chart done, you actually see that, like, your main sign is just kind of like a big container, a big box. but all of the various influences definitely steer that in a unique way. So yeah, and I've got like the Pisces with a lot of solar influence and as well as a lot of Neptunian influence, and so there's a lot of watery there. But yeah, so then well, what Belial's good at is for if you have to overcome an obstacle, he's really good at helping you overcome obstacles. He's really good at setting you up for freedom, whatever that means. I live in the underworld in many, many ways. And so whenever I need legal defense, I hire a really good attorney and I call Belial every time. Like, that's not even a question. Those are the two calls I make, is my attorney first and then Belial second. And it never fails.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah. But I mean, for whenever he's talking about removing your shackles, I think literally your shackles can be anything. Like for me, my shackle, I'm gonna say I have a lot of problems with anxiety, and I see my psychologist for that. And it's a fucking shackle. It really does restrain me in a lot of ways. So a working that I could possibly do with Belial is removing that from my life, which I think is difficult to do because it's I don't know, because yeah.
I'll tell you what, anxiety is one of the common things with a lot of black magic practitioners, and I don't know if it's like because we're anxious, that's something that pushes us to look to this crazy stuff, or I actually think that it's more a matter that we are drawing in a lot more energy. We're conduits for a lot more power than most people are.
Yeah.
And it overloads our circuits.
I feel that whenever I started really working with Vassago, so I know this is completely off topic again, but Vassago is, really good at helping you find things, and he's also good with relationships and helping you by telling the lies that your enemies say of you. So it's really interesting whenever I started working with him, because I think that's whenever my anxiety really started picking up after I moved from that small town I used to live in to back to the city where I was born. Because it's like you can sit there and you can read somebody, you can read their body language, and you're trying to figure out what they're thinking. And I swear to God, it's like half of the time Vassago's sitting there telling me something in my ear. And I don't think I'm not going to say that, my mental health problems are Vassago's fault, but sometimes I really wonder, what if this is my anxiety, or if this is Vassago whispering in my ear that I really need to pay attention to, Yeah,
so I see a therapist from time to time when I need it, and I'll kind of see him in spurts. Like when my whole life goes off the rails, I'll get hold of him, and he does awesome work. He's an amazing fellow. But and then I'll go like sometimes a couple years or whatever before I let things go off the rails again. But one of the things I went in to see him to look at different options for treating my anxiety with medication. I've done a few different medications for it, and so I just kind of wanted to get his input, and so we talked for an hour, and I just for an hour I'm just rambling. At one point I'm sobbing. At one point I'm yelling at him, and then at the end of it he's like, all right, well, our hour's up. What can I do to kind of help you wrap this up? And I'm like, well, tell me, should I go get on medication or not? He goes, the very first thing that you said in this conversation was, my feelings tell me things. And he goes, so there is a matter of listening to what your feelings are telling you. If your feelings are out of control and they're not telling you anything useful, you've got to take that into consideration. But I know for myself, it's almost always telling me something important that I need to pay attention to. In some way, my life is not where it needs to be. My head's not where it needs to be. That I've definitely had points in my life where it's been the anxiety's been there for no reason, that it's just there, and it's just a residual PTSD type of thing. And so you do have to put that on the balance, but there is it does get hard to tell sometimes if you're if you're listening to the crazy or if you're listening to inspiration. I think the two are pretty close together. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, just something that that always interests me is whenever I'm sitting there talking with my psychologist, and I actually tell her about my path workings and this kinds of things, and she always tells me that I appear to be or talk like I am extremely confident in my knowledge about path workings that I'm working, like my religion. Which is actually really interesting that she actually, sits there and listens, because she's a Christian, but I guess it's her job to listen to people. But I just thought it was interesting because she tells me that I sound confident, but if I'm ever anxious about a working, dude, it can take me weeks to finally get it through my head that I have to take like a week to get my mindset in the right place to do this working. Because if I go in there super anxious, I'm going to come out like fucking ruined. So like you know what I mean? And so like, it is just so difficult. Like I think that's the only time anxiety really affects like my work is, man, it's just, I like to think that, my magic is limitless. I have boundaries, but I want to push them and I want to test my limits. But my true limit is myself. And that's like the thing that I hate the most about myself most times, really. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. No, I'll tell you what. In my as I've just barely started turning my attention to Lucifuge, he started to whisper into my ear a little bit here and there, and that's usually how it starts. It's like little breadcrumbs of like intuition, or sometimes words that'll just pop into my head. And I completely forgot where I was going with that. He told me something. I was like, I was going to tell you it, and then it just disappeared from my mind. So, but anyways, all right. I'm going to put that to the side, and if it comes back, I'll mention it. But
there we go.
To move forward with the gatekeepers, there, try to bust through this information before we get too off track. Is this is a Mayan? He's the Black Sun. He's appeared in different. He appeared in Egypt as Amun. He appeared for the Carthaginians as Haman. He's the Black Sun. He's he is a form and a face and a permutation of Lucifer, absolutely. But he's the darkness of Lucifer. He's Lucifer's. He's the unseen part. While you're looking at the brilliance of the sun, you can see the chromosphere is the color of it, and if you do sun gazing, which is I'm not sure if it damages your eyes or not, so be careful. But I used to do this where I'd go up at dawn and watch the sunrise and stare straight into it. At sunrise, it's supposed to be filtered enough through the atmosphere and not direct enough of a light to really hurt your eyes. But I don't know. One of my buddies went blind doing this just about. So I didn't do it for very long. But anyways, as you gaze at the sun, you do start to see the black center of it. And there's not there's a point where it does get to be something going on with your retina where you start to see dots of dark things. But beyond that, once that clears up, you do see the black sun in the center of the sun. It's just like a point. And that's what you're getting to with a Mayan. He helps you. He helps you become basically a master of yourself. He helps you. One of the things he teaches is how to, in a lot of ways, how to chill out, how to become an internal master. Because and I'm sure you can relate to this now that we've had the anxiety conversation, is like when you're rushing around trying to do things and you're afraid you're not going to do it right, that's when you fuck up the most. It's when you're able to just take that breath and you just calmly go about whatever task you're going about. It seems like it just is flawless. And he teaches you how to get to that point magically, and even with mundane matters. And so then Azazel's the great teacher. He teaches us how to learn, basically. He teaches us how to learn how to become like they are. He also turns the tables on that quite a bit, where he bridges the worlds, and he lets us know that he he and they are also trying to become more like us. And so there's a convergence going on where as we evolve, they are evolving, and we're evolving to what I believe is a mutual apex. People say this thing about like the aliens. The aliens are trying to create a hybrid species. Well, I think we're not too far from that with these demonic entities. That there is a return of the Nephilim maybe that's underway. So, yeah, and then you've got Abaddon, the gatekeeper of the bottomless pit. In the folklore about Abaddon, he holds the key to the bottomless pit. He locks Satan and all of Satan's minions in the underworld, in this bottomless pit. And then at the end of days, he loosens the lock, and they all come out. And so he has the ability to bind demons, to bind people, to bind situations. He's also the great destroyer. And so this is linked in with Kali, as well as the Canaanite god Mot, the god of death. You can find Abaddon really easily if you look at the different systems. There's a little interesting trait that in every one of his incarnations, his name is both a place and a person. So it's Abaddon the being, but Abaddon is also the name of the place of destruction. You have the same thing with Mot, Hades, Hela, Zibalba is another. And so it's and Kali doesn't necessarily mean death, but she's time eternal. And so to us that seems a lot like death and nothingness, but it's not necessarily. But yeah, so that's the first four. After that, you've got Lucifuge, so Lucifuge's name is basically he who flees from the light, and that's really interesting because he is an extreme dark figure, and in every one of his permutations, even like for Thoth, for instance, most people don't really understand that Thoth began as an underworld deity, that he was the original, or one of the original gods of death before Osiris took over that position. And they've had many gods that they've kind of thrown into that psychopomp situation. Thoth was one of the original. And once again, as well as the various permutations of that being. And so he's always moving, slinking into the darkness. One of the ways I interpret that is that he's an illuminator, he's an initiator into these dark mysteries. And so as you walk into the darkness, your eyes adjust, and I guess that could be symbolic of your whole being adjusting to what used to be a mystery. Once you experience something and you understand it on a personal level, it's not mysterious to you, but the darkness continues to move. In other words, you always see there is more mystery. So now that I understand this, it usually just opens up another question. Every time you learn something, you've got more questions, and that is the nature of Lucifuge, that he is ever retreating into the darkness, back into more and more mystery. And then let's see. So Lucifuge, I'm probably going to be jumping out of order here. Asmodeus, I think, is down the line. Oh, Beelzebub. Beelzebub is next. All right. So Beelzebub is. Everybody thinks, most people assume that Beelzebub is just one of the many names of Satan. And I mean, once again, it's the river and the stream kind of theory. But yeah, he is actually a very, very unique entity. He was a god that was basically a Canaanite and Phoenician and Babylonian god of that began just as like a tribal god, and grew and grew and grew as people came and encountered him or whatever. That they started incorporating the worship of Beelzebub in their rites. And in that period, he was known more as Beelzebub, although he's got a few names: Balrukor, Bal Muon. He's a very, very solar entity. And that's why he's known as Lord of the Flies. The flies are solar because flies are out in the daytime, they're out in the summer, and so they're associated with the sun. Flies are also associated with having vision that's beyond just binocular vision, seeing the unseen. as well as the command over armies of spirits, legions. And so, yeah, Beelzebub definitely instills that in you. He can awaken your vision. I haven't had. All right, so previous to working with Beelzebub, I would have like spurts of growth where I would like be fully immersed in my spiritual evolution. And then I would hit these points of going, maybe it's just all bullshit. Just kind of have that like down moment of really questioning it. And I think a part of that was that I wasn't having the kind of like spectacular breakthrough experiences that I wanted. It wasn't, I wasn't having enough like really aha moments where I'm like blown away by whatever happens. So I call him Beelzebub, and I'm like, yeah, I want to have that. I want to have an experience or experiences so amazing that I can never really question this again. And it is absurd how that's come about. And even so, I do the ritual, and it's a 3-day ritual. You go take a pig's head and put it on a stake out in the middle of the desert in the middle of the summer, and leave it there for 3 days. Come back, and it's crazy to me that the pig's head was still there, because like we got coyotes all over the place, all kinds of wildlife that would come pick up anything. But there it was, just sitting there on the stake still, but swarming with flies. It had like, it was disgusting. I mean, absolutely disgusting. But as soon as I even got close to the area, I could feel just that presence was so thick. And so I called him up, wrote the pact with him. That was basically just a pact of enhancing my vision was the main thing that I wanted. And I walked out after the ritual was over, and it was a great ritual, had great contact, everything. But I walked out and I had more doubt than I've ever had in my life. Like to the point that I called one of my friends and I'm like, look, I think I might have to quit being a teacher of this stuff because I don't know that it's real. And he's like, whoa, buddy, like what's going on here? Like this has been your whole life. Well, take it easy. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Like I don't know. It seems like it's probably just all a fraud. I'm a fraud, whatever. And my buddy's like, don't know how to help you. Sorry, he had nothing for me. I was like, all right, cool. So I spent like the rest of the day just like racked with like not only doubt but also guilt, because when I can't continue to teach people if I myself don't know. And so I went in out of a like just complete inspiration, out of nowhere, in this place of like complete doubt. I had a light bulb go off in my head that said, hey, go up to specifically Pine Valley, which is like a mountain area that we have here. Go up to Pine Valley and go find a tree. I'm like, okay, I'll go with this. Like it's an inspiration that's coming. I've asked for this. I'll try it out for sure. And the details over the night kind of started just coming into my head as far as that this was going to be based on rune working, that I was going to take my runes with me. I was going to take my drinking horn and some mead with me, and go see if I could make contact with the Viking gods. And I was like, okay, I've never done anything like this before. I'd played with the runes. I know how to read them as a divination tool, but I hadn't really worked through anything Norse at all. So I go to this. I go up to the Pine Valley area, and so there's like a little booth that somebody's in that they tell you where to go. They collect a little entrance fee. The entrance fee is like $5. I assumed I had $5 in my wallet. I didn't. I had $3. I'm like, oh man, like I can't get in. I can't fulfill this shit. And they don't. For the most part, they don't take they don't take credit cards at all. And if you don't have the money, they don't let you in. Like, it's that simple. So I pull up and I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry, I've just got to turn around. I don't have I've got $3. I don't have 5. Sorry. She's like, well, it's always a good idea to carry at least $20 on you. I'm like, thanks, Grandma. I really appreciate the advice. But yeah, she goes, tell you what, I'll take your $3. You go on in, and then next time you come through, just give an extra $2. I'm like, are you serious? Like, they never do that. She's like, yeah. Okay, cool. So I give her $3, drive on in. just already feeling like, okay, there's a validation there, like things are going my way, this is good. And then just following like a magnetic pull, I pull my car over to the side of the road, and just get out of it, grab my stuff, and just start walking in some random direction, just completely following the magnetism the whole way. And I come across this tree that's a giant, like a giant, it looked like a giant sequoia, but it wasn't, it couldn't have been because we don't necessarily have those here, but it looked just like it. So I'm looking up and this tree just seems to go up forever. I'm like, all right, so this is obviously a symbol of the tree Yggdrasil of the 9 worlds. So here it is. So I sit down, get my notebook out, get my my horn, pour the meat in it, get a little toast, and pour a little bit on the ground. Kind of go through the steps of the ritual that I'd just only really memorized at that point. I didn't really, and it's a really basic just ritual of drinking from a horn, asking for inspiration. So I take a sip of it, and by the time I bring it down, I see with my physical eyes a glowing light like right up here, and I look to it, and my internal vision picks up, and it didn't look like just like a body of light physically. My internal vision is just picking up this instant vision of this being that looks like a mixture between an elf and an angel. And she, I think it was a she, says, because the gender with elves, you never can tell. But she starts dictating. She says, okay, so you want to work with the frost giants, because that's kind of your nature, is to work with the chaotic stuff, but they're going to eat you alive. And so here's actually how you need to go about this path working. First, you need to start where you're at in Midgard. And then after that, you're going to need to go get Thor's help. And so you're going to need to go to this world next. Lays out the entire 9 worlds path working for the Viking system to me. I'm sitting there just taking notes as much as I can. And it was such and then that set me off in my own Viking path working course that took me a year, and it was completely evolutionary, but it came from as a result of working with Beelzebub. And it was a completely, like, ever since that moment, whatever was unlocked in me, like I haven't questioned the reality of any of this. I've questioned the interpreted reality of this, like, the question of, are these beings part of my consciousness, or what's really going on here? Are they all one consciousness that's just splitting itself off? All of those questions are still definitely lingering in my mind. But the question of, is it real? That is gone. It's absolutely fucking real. You don't believe it? Call on it. It comes. Like, that's not even in question. Right. So that's Beelzebub. And then after that, I think we've got Belial. And I know I'm going out of order at this point. And he is the king, the Lord. And so if you want command over people is one. You want to be a leader of people, he can definitely help you with that. Strength is one of his. So when I go to work out in the morning, if I'm doing like a strength training workout, I put on my t-shirt that has his, or my tank top that has his sigil on it. And it does empower you, just even to wear it, to gaze at the sigil, to invoke Baal's presence, does create that solidification of your own strength. So he's awesome at that. Asmodeus is over love, relationships, but at the same time is also known as the wrathful one. And so you have this, Asmodeus can do some crazy revenge work. So it takes the destructive magic to another level where you're not just trying to destroy, you're actually torturing. It's almost like love turned upside down. And then after that, I think we're just left with Satan. I feel like I'm missing one though.
I think you mentioned Asmodee earlier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Asmodee. So, all right. I think that might be it then. So then there's Satan, and Satan is the specific form of Satan that I've locked onto for this gatekeeper working. The one that popped out of the woodwork for this is Satan as the destroyer, specifically as the apocalyptic destroyer. Satan comes up from the depths, like Yam-Nehar, Leviathan, hydra, comes up from the depths of the abyss, only momentarily takes a formed body, because this energy that prefers to be primordial, prefers to be the black dragon that just slinks into the darkness, but takes a body momentarily, just long enough to bring about the apocalypse, to destroy everything. And so I think that he is the final one that I'm going to work with through this gatekeeper working. And I think the point of it all is to create the apocalypse, and that's, you know, in a personal sense, to completely rewrite how you view the world, completely rewrite your entire understanding of reality, but then and to rid your life of whatever obstacles are holding you back, because that's what the apocalypse is. It's a burning away of everything. It's a revelation so intense that it changes everything for you. Hopefully.
I got a question. So, you know,
Yeah.
Hollywood produces the apocalypse as Hollywood produces it, but is it different whenever you're talking about the apocalypse? I'm assuming it's an apocalypse inside of yourself where you're like destroying and rebuilding. I'm assuming, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so the thing is within, it is within yourself, but as above, so below, as within, so without. It tends to have reflections in the outside world, that the changes within are like types of shadows of the things to come, or the things that are happening on a large scale. Yeah, and this is yet another benefit to sharing information online with people, is that you start seeing that when somebody's having a specific struggle with a specific topic or practice, it seems like a whole lot of people are having that similar struggle. So in that way, as we start to rewrite our perceptions and wipe the slate clean, we do see that first in our personal lives, that things start to shift, sometimes really, really erratically, and it forces us to first of all to solidify whatever changes that are needed, to solidify the letting go of the things we need to let go. But it also is forcing the outside reality to conform to the internal change. It's like everything has to become elevated, and so it does have an effect in the outside world, to the point that my proposition is that it's not just a change of consciousness, that people who undergo this process are, and this process is what Belial calls the black alchemy. It's a transmutation of yourself in a extreme way. He says in a genetic way, that your actual genes can be tracked changing once we have a full understanding of genetics, which we don't. We're not even close. But this change that you're undergoing, it is a very real change, but it's also shifting you into, I hate to use the word a parallel dimension, because that sounds so sci-fi, but it's taking us to another reality, a reality that is, it's close enough, it's like overlapped with default reality just enough that my neighbor still sees me, you know, we still interact with each other, and we still have some of the same basic needs, and react to some of the laws of physics the same, but my reality and theirs is completely different. So yeah, to the point that my reality seems to obey a completely different set of rules and laws and needs. So
let me see. I really wanted to talk about in your video, Abaddon Lakshmi. I really love that you said to change something on the outside, you have to change something within yourself. And I want to jump on that. A lot of people don't understand that, and I'm really glad that you put that out there. And so through this path working, you of course had to change something within yourself. And then you talked about how it really just messes with you psychologically. So how are you standing now psychologically that you somewhat finished your path working here?
I'm getting through it. It's hard. It's intense. Like I said, I don't know if it was that video or another where I said that one of the things I would suggest is to give it a bit more time in between.
Yeah, give it like about a week. Yeah, I wrote. That's my last question in here.
Okay. But yeah, so it is. Once again, it's not just changes in your psyche, but it's changes in everything. Changes in your relationships, changes in your the circumstances that you're enmeshed in. And it's rough. I'm very lucky that I'm in a relationship with somebody who can roll with a lot of craziness, because there's a lot of craziness that happens, and so not many people could. But it does, it creates, once again, it's not just the psychological, but my reality as a whole has rearranged a little bit, and it gets, each of these gatekeepers kind of opens up a new understanding of how to get inside my own head and inside my own being, make those changes, and then watch the outside world change. That's part of this whole experiment, I think, is part of what they're trying to teach me, is how malleable the outside world is, and that the hammer that you bring down on the metal is your perception of things. It's interesting to notice how Lucifuge is so much more organized than Abaddon, and those shifts are interesting and important. So to use exercise as another example, is if you do the same exercise over about a 3-month period, you become proficient at it. If you're doing like a daily exercise, you become proficient at it, and then it stops being as effective. So you stop getting gains from doing the same workout routine over and over. So after about every 3 months, you do have to change, switch it up, and add something, or completely shift to a new exercise. Same thing with magic, and especially with this kind of intense work. So the shift between, and it's good to do opposing muscle groups. So let's say I'm working my biceps, it's also good on that same day to work my triceps, so that way I'm stretching the muscle in a different way, whatever. Same thing with these gatekeepers. They're aligned so perfectly. Like, the genius of the revelation it blows me away, because like I'm a smart guy, you know, I'm smart enough to get by in the world, but I'm not nearly smart enough to create the genius shit that these beings reveal. Like just the layout, the order that they told me to work them in. I just trusted them. I'm like, all right, you know, this is a path working for you guys, so I'll just go with it, whatever. To do the math and look at how it's aligned is so perfect that it's beyond what I could ever create with my mind. And yeah, it really is. So you've got Abaddon, that's like chaos, destruction, and then that's balanced by Lucifuge, who's the creator of language, you know, creator of the human soul. He is the one who flees the light because he existed before the light, and he is at one with the darkness. It's a really interesting calmness and certainty that he has, and an organization that has already, it's interesting because it already has started manifesting in my life, in the fact that I've hired on somebody to handle a lot of like the day-to-day business of my business, so that way I don't have to, that I can focus on the things I need to. And this person is like so extraordinarily organized. So I'm already seeing like the physical circumstances just happen to line up without me even looking for somebody, without me ever putting out an ad. I had somebody come to me and say, hey, I want to quit my job, come and help you out. Here's what I can do. Here's what I need. I'm like, holy, like, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So this is my last question. So I want to focus this on not like your every day-to-day, you know, like someone who's like less experienced, I'm guessing. I'm going for that. So for someone who's younger or less experienced in the left-hand practice, or is kind of new to all of this, let's say that they wanted to go forth and, you know, do this gatekeeper working to really immerse themselves into it. What advice would you give them besides giving them more time in between each deity or spirit?
I would say to don't hold yourself back. Just came to me. That's what Lucifuge was whispering in my ear the other day, was that we have all power already. There's not a need to find more power or even to find more knowledge. All of these exercises work to do one thing, and that's to get you out of your own way. That we have all power, we have all capability, and then we put blockages up to our ability to access that. oh, I'm not capable of this, or I'm not strong enough, or I'm not smart enough, or I just don't have the right opportunities, or whatever it is. We use a million excuses to get out of our responsibility to be creators. And so, yeah, so, and now that I just said that, I completely forgot what your question actually was.
Advice for younger practitioners. I would say that mine, what is to definitely get out of the Christianity dogma of that all of this is evil or demonic or Satanist or whatever. That would be mine. Because I think whenever I first started this path working, I literally had that mindset because I grew up in a Christian household. You know, that good shit. So I think getting out of the dogma, for one, is the toughest thing because, you know, you're taught throughout your whole life to fear something, and then you start going out of your comfort zones, and it's a little overwhelming when you don't understand something at first. But I think that would be my advice.
Yeah, you know, then there's something you said to that. So that there's, I will work with a lot of students who have that. They, you know, most people in the Western world are coming from some sort of religious background, which means that they're coming in with all kinds of ideas that are completely inaccurate. And so one of the things that I think we have to focus on when we're working magic is that magic is alchemy. That everything that we're doing is just a form of alchemy. So if you're going to change lead to gold, you can't just tell lead to stop being lead and to become gold. That's an impossibility. So instead, you've got to take that lead and you have to apply the right kind of pressure that's going to start a transmutation process. So lead is not going to just become gold. It's probably going to become a few things before it reaches gold. Yeah. It's going to have to evolve. And so with your belief system, with your perception of reality, that's very real. It's not like the fear is telling you something that's not real. You've created that reality for yourself. And a lot of times, if you feel like you're going to be punished, you're going to create your punishment. If you feel like the demons are going to be negative, they're going to be negative. And so what you have to do is you have to utilize that and apply some pressure to it. And there are a few ways to do that: rites of blasphemy, rites of initiation, orgy rites. Some people will go as far as saying like human sacrifice. I think human sacrifice is maybe going a little far, but all of these things do stimulate a separation between who you used to be and who you are, usually by utilizing the same fear and impulses. So it looks like you had a really good thought to add to that, though.
Man. Okay, so I recently just actually did an episode on the Threefold Law because, like, it was really meant to call out, like, the belittling and the bullying and bullshit that the white light Wiccan community portrays onto the left-hand path. And, like, I was literally talking about whatever you think is going to happen to you from the threefold, you're literally bringing on yourself. It's a fucking curse in itself, because if you sit here and you think that whatever you cast out is going to hurt you, then it's going to come back and fucking hurt you, because it's the law of attraction. It is what it is. And same with what you just said, like if you think that these demons are going to seek themselves out to hurt you, to seek themselves out to harm you, then they fucking will, because you probably fucking deserve it if you're going to treat them like shit. I mean, like, oh man, just the thing that I don't understand is people, whenever they come into this, you know, path working or teaching or become interested, they just think it's like, oh, well, I should be able to control them. I should be able to do whatever I want to them, and they should listen to me. And I'm just like, no, just stop there. Just stop. Have respect, because have the same amount of respect that you would have for them as you would with a light white deity, if that makes sense. You know, like, you know what I'm saying? Like your normal deities that other practitioners would practice with, like, oh, I don't know, like Zeus, like some kind. Have the same amount of respect, because although they're basically energy with just different names that we've given them. Why would you treat something that you think is darker than something that you think is lighter? Because it just doesn't make fucking sense. Like, just have a little bit of respect, you know? And I don't understand why people are just like, oh, I should be able to do this with them. And it's just like, make a relationship. You will have so much better results. Oh my God, it's a pet peeve of mine.
Well, and I'll tell you what, that's, yeah, you're not wrong at all. One of the all right, so like I said, I do accept that these beings, at least the beings I'm currently working with, are very, very real. They're tangible. They exist. I mean, I can't say they exist outside of my observation of them because I'm observing them. So that's impossible. That's an impossible statement to make. But they do exist, and with that, they I mean, they don't necessarily demand respect. If you don't respect them, they don't care. But they also don't care if you get crushed like a cockroach under their weight. You know, one of the, well, something that Azazel's always pushed me for. So Azazel specifically, he is like he is absolutely like my patron deity. Although I hesitate to say deity because what he teaches is not to kneel and worship him.
Yeah, same like Lucifer. Yeah.
But to bring yourself to his level.
Yeah.
Now, but I can see where the white magicians, I know what they're trying to do, and it does make sense what they're trying to do, but it doesn't make sense that it doesn't work, and they keep trying it. But that's to subjugate their selves. We are all infinite beings, right? So it's said in the Vedas that all of the gods, all of the devas are here within the human body, and that doesn't mean that they're all just part of ourselves. It means that our bodies, ourselves, are infinite, and so these beings are already part of us. They're already manifest in us in certain ways, and so we're unlocking that. We're making contact with real beings, and in the process, we're unlocking those beings within ourselves, and becoming the gateway for them. And so what the white magicians are trying to do is to bring the forces of nature and the forces of their own unconsciousness into control. So let's say Asmodeus, for example. So if you're a white magician who wants to do what you define as good, and you want to be a good person, you want to be you want to be able to feel like you're righteously being holier than thou, then you've got to purge those, like Asmodeus as example, you got to purge the violent sexuality or the BDSM urges or whatever it is that they're fighting. Now, what they're not understanding is that as you try to repress something, it just becomes more intense. And so rather than calling the Asmodeus forth and forcing him to submit to you, I mean that in itself is a BDSM act. I mean you're basically trying to smack his ass with a crop, and that's fine. but at some point, like you've got to realize that you're only empowering it by doing so. First off, and you're not helping yourself. So it's like the certain branches of Hinduism and Buddhism will practice renunciation, and their form of renunciation is that you stop engaging in pleasurable things in order to uplift and transcend the flesh and the body. It doesn't work. This is why you see actually Buddhism specifically has a much better reputation than it should have. The sex crimes that go on in Buddhism make the Catholic Church look like it's not doing anything bad, but it doesn't get reported. It doesn't get. It's built into that culture, into the culture that just thinks that that's part of the training. And so, yeah. Anyways, the real path to being able to release desire is to obtain everything that you want. And so, if you have something that flashes in your mind, that pulls your desire, my opinion is that you should push yourself into that as much as you can without harming anyone and with consent of anyone that's involved. I am big on consent, but there are ways that you can find consenting adults to do with you just about anything that you want to do. And once you experience the taboo, whatever thing that you desire, or even once you have the objects that you desire, and you know that you can have them at will, they become a lot less interesting. Then you're not obsessed with it.
I want to jump on something that my psychologist said to me the last time we had our session, actually, because I was talking to her about the last episode of interview thing we did together. And it was about literally, I was like honestly surprised the fact that you said that you went back to Mormonism, like because it's a struggle that a lot of people I know actually have dealt with, where they go back to their old religion. And she was like, that's actually really interesting because, her as a psychologist, she sees things from a different view. She said that a lot of times people jump back to something that they're more comfortable with to see if something that they're entering in that is new, to see if it was a phase or not. And just, it made, I don't know why I just brought this up. I just completely forgot why it made so much sense. It was something that you said. So it's like a button, when it comes to controlling your desires. It's like a button that says do not push. So when people go and enter into things to see what it's all about, it's like, okay, well, do I really like this? Am I interested in it still? Should I go back to, where I was, or should I move forward? Like, I don't know. I think as humans, we bounce back and forth, touching on comforts and then expanding and then continuing going back and forth. I think it's just something that we do. I don't know.
Yeah, so I only live like maybe 45 minutes from the town that I basically grew up in. I spent a few years growing up in Las Vegas, but here in Southern Utah has been where I grew up. And all through like high school specifically, I was determined I was going to get the hell out of this town, that I hated it, and that it was holding me back from all the happiness that I wanted in life. And so I just moved. I would live out of a suitcase and just like jump on a Greyhound bus and go wherever like I had friends that were like, hey, come check this place out. Boom, I was there. Obviously that was before I had a child and wanted to do something with my life. But it was a fun way. It was a way fun way to spend like the first few years out of high school for sure. It was a lot better. I learned a lot more than I ever could have going to college. But anyways, so I would go to all these places, and mainly just in the U.S. I went to Canada a couple times, but mainly just a couple places in the U.S. Big cities usually, because where I'm from, small cities. So I was trying to get the opposite. Grass is always greener. But I'd always bounce back here. This was like the safe place. I would go somewhere. I would live whatever rock star life I was trying to live, and then when everything came crashing down, this is where I'd end up back at. And I think that it's easy to. We all need to have some kind of safe place. What I found through going back to Mormonism is that it wasn't. It seemed like it could be a safe place because, like, in my mind, the brainwashing was there, telling me that the other paths are evil paths and they lead to evil things. We are the right path. And so, when my whole life had fallen apart at that point, it's like, well, they told me this would happen, and I guess the way to settle this is to return to the last sane moment that I knew. And here's the, and then this is like a total like condemnation of our current society for sure, is that we don't have true safe places. Our families aren't safe. Most children that are abused by a family member. Most of the time when you get your feelings hurt, when you have bad things happen, it's almost always the people that are closest to you. So you can't rely on that to be the safe place. The religions that we've been taught are all either bullshit or they're different permutations of some other bullshit. And I can even say that with my understandings of things, it is like it's very flawed because I'm processing this all through a human consciousness that is dictated by society, by social programming, by family programming, by even religious upbringing. All of these things provide filters that are good. They're useful filters to survive in society. They're not very useful in giving terms and understanding what's going on at the deepest levels. So we're all kind of like broken and wandering and lost and trying to figure it all out, and we have not been given any tools by our society to do that.
Yeah, I agree there.
There's a sweeping statement there.
Yeah, I don't even know what to add to that. And so I don't really have any more questions.
Yeah. So, and I'm just going to add to my previous statement, in that, you know, a few years ago, Timothy Donahue, who's the co-founder and co-operator of Become a Living God, he and I throw our philosophy at each other every now and again and say, hey, what do you think of that, about this? And we think about things in such different ways that it's interesting to bounce those ideas off each other. And so I hit him up several years, like maybe 5 years ago, and I said, you know, we've got Become a Living God is going full steam. We've got people's attention. Maybe we ought to start encouraging people to do group ritual, to come together to affect politics, to affect world religion, world affairs. And that's a fun thing that I like to do myself. I've got a few people that I'll call on for different things. You know, if it's a specific change that I'm looking at making, I've got people I know that I can call on to say, hey, you know, at this time, this day, I'd like to make this change in the world. And so I was wanting to take that to a global scale and just say, hey, let's get my whole audience in on this. And Timothy, he says, you know, okay, so that's great and everything, but let's say you take one politician or 50 politicians out of office, which is not hard to do. It is not hard to get somebody kicked out of politics. Like, I'll tell you, personal experience, and I've not done this on a presidential scale, but even the president can be taken out of office. And so he says, you do that and somebody else just replaces him. It's Hydra. Another head just pops up, and another corrupt person steps right into that spot. And so the real way to change the world and to change society is to not focus on the symptoms, which are, you know, the politics and religion and all of that, but focus on the problem. And the underlying problem is powerlessness, that people believe that they're powerless. People believe that they need church and state, and they need these social norms, and that they need their neighbor to pat them on the back and tell them that they're a good person. And the way you change all of that is by empowering the individual. And so he's like, you know, basically the solution is what we're currently doing. It's getting the information out there, letting people do what they want with it. And it all does work itself out. They're pretty, the solution to just about any problem turns out to be education.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's education. It really is. Like, I don't know how to emphasize that more, but it really is. Yeah, I love having you on my show.
No, awesome. No, it always is a great conversation.
Man, it's just, yeah, we always have such good conversations. I don't even know where to go with this because I don't even know what else to get into.
You know, so I'll just take over from here.
Yeah, I'll just say.
But no, you know, so in working with these gatekeepers, the final goal, like I said, is the apocalypse, and you know, you'd ask if that's like a personal thing, and it is. It's also a thing you see in your reality. If enough of us are pushing towards freedom, an increase in personal freedom, personal power, we're going to unlock that, and there is going to be a clearing. So like all of you, you know, we've been talking about the changes that happen as your perspective and perception changes, that your outside world changes. It never just shifts itself nicely and cleanly though. It's like an earthquake, and the stuff that's not supposed to be there just is going to fall into the cracks.
Fucking chaos.
Yeah, and that's a hard. I think that is a hard thing to deal with. Oh, the balance between being an adept and being a human is it's a really interesting tightrope to walk. And when I say adept, you know, I guarantee you there are going to be people out there. Oh yeah, look, guys calling him an adept. You got to call yourself an adept. Like if you want to be something, you've got to start imagining.
You have to turn yourself into that. You have to adapt yourself.
Yeah. And so to truly like become an adept and to live that, it does also mean balancing yourself with your human side, with a reality that does shake itself and change, and shit doesn't. It's not even so. With magic, you got the ability to control a lot of things, but what you start finding out is like that you see this happening over here, so you're like, oh, I'm gonna go pluck that string with a spell and make that change. Now you don't realize it at the time, but you just changed 50 different things that now you have to deal with. Which is this is like school for gods. We are figuring out how to make these changes in the best way possible. But yeah, it is chaos. You do have an unleashing of chaos.
You change like one thing, it's like you pull that string that's actually on a sweater and you unravel the whole sweater and you change like the whole thing. Yeah.
No, there's the magic can definitely make your life. It makes the simple problems a lot easier to deal with. But then it wakes you up to a whole new set of very, very complicated problems. A lot of them which are like existential. That you're no longer worrying about how to pay rent. You're trying to figure out how to exist as a singularity of eternal nature compressed into this figure that has its own problems. So yeah.
And it's just and then the more you immerse yourself into it, the more things you're wanting to seek out, the more things you're wanting to evolve within yourself, and it's literally just like a never-ending spiral. It's crazy. Yeah.
And once again, that is I think that is one of the mysteries of the name Lucifuge, is one who flees the light. That once again, it's the ever elusive mystery that the more you learn, the more you know that you don't know. And yeah, the difficult thing. One of the accusations that I get. So you do have a crowd of people that think I'm just completely bullshit, that I'm a charlatan, and that's okay. I'm fine with them thinking that. That's an extreme minority, but then you have another group of kind of, I guess you say, detractors or critics that say that that if I am who I say I am, and I'm capable of doing the things that I'm capable of doing, that I know a lot more than I'm letting on to, and that I'm providing like these get rich quick spells, when in fact like there's knowledge that's so much deeper. And there absolutely is. The get rich quick, the love spells, and those kinds of things that appeal to the immediate desire. That's the hook. That's what makes all of us want to use this. Honestly, most of us at some point or another slack. We like, we're all into our discipline. We're doing great with it. We're like, yeah, I'm an adept. And then next thing you know, you forgot to meditate. You haven't meditated in like a month. You haven't done any rituals because you just haven't had any real reason to. And you kind of start going down in this downward spiral of apathy, until something happens. Something happens in your life that makes you need to use magic. That all of a sudden a problem arises, and you're like, oh yeah, that's right. I've got this toolkit that has the solutions for everything I need, and I forgot all about it. And that's what re-engages you. That is what engages you. But the real depth of it is only experience. Like I do from time to time jump on throw my cameras on, jump on, and try to explain the deepest mysteries. And to me, it sounds like I'm just speaking nonsense, because it doesn't make sense to anybody who hasn't experienced it.
Right.
So
that is, my other co-host, I assume you're a co-host because this is the second time you've been on my show. So my other co-host, Dream, she's in the, I feel like I'm going to butcher this, but she's a draconian which she's focused on destroying her inner self and rebuilding it, like extinguishing humanity and replacing it with what she actually is. And man, when she talks about some things, it blows my fucking mind because there'll be times where she gets really fucking down, like really low. I mean, but she doesn't stop practicing or anything, but she gets so low where it's like, dude, my existence literally means nothing because there's like other realities of me and mine literally means nothing. And I'm just like, I don't even know what the fuck to tell her because it's astounding. And she's fucking badass. I love her to death. And I've been, excuse me, I have known her since I really started practicing. I actually remember meeting her like whenever I actually started, and we've developed thus far together. And man, just I don't know, it's really interesting because I got my own path, and then I look at hers, and I'm just like, damn, like, I mean, oh my god, it's just I don't even know how to describe what the hell she does or what the hell she is, but she's fucking a beast. She's a fucking beast.
No, I'll tell you what, there it is. Most people, I think the people who do think that I'm a charlatan, probably a lot of them think that because they can't imagine a person putting themselves through the shit that I put myself through, or continually pushing things as hard as I push them. Their imagination just hasn't allowed for a reality that for me is like my daily life. But that's, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, man, they're just in constant disbelief. I think they just, I would just say they're in constant disbelief. If they, I mean, you got some people out there who are all like, oh, from my experience from talking about you with some pages that some of my followers listen to, or some of them who don't listen to, they think that you're a sham because you commercialize it. But I'm just like, man, it is his fucking business. Like, this is his job, this is his living. So of course he has to commercialize it because that's the hook to gain interest. But his actual beliefs, his actual, like, the way he thinks and actually does magic is so much different than what he portrays. And I think that's why a lot of my viewers like really love the interview that I did with you previously, because I made you look so personable. I made you look so down to earth. Yeah. Yeah.
No, so I used to apologize a bit for my marketing techniques, where I'd tell people about what I do for a living, if there's somebody I know in the mundane world, or as I'm talking to people about magic, that I'm like, oh yeah, but I have to promote it this way. What I've come to realize though is that my marketing campaign is a ritual. It's magic. So when in your daily life do you light a bunch of candles and incense and say some words you really don't understand and gaze at symbols? Like, never. That's not a part of our daily lives. That's a part of ritual. It's a psychodrama that is blown up. You're taking the things that you want and you're finding a way to make it as like visually stimulating as possible, to make it over the top. Now, and then even the way that you emotionally approach it. Like, one of the things I'll tell people is, if you want something to happen, it's probably not going to happen, because you need it to happen. You need to have your head on the chopping block that if this ritual doesn't work, you're fucked. And if you can get to that point and just, pour yourselves out to these beings and this power to say, look, I don't have any other fucking option. Please help me. If you get to that point, it's almost guaranteed success, as long as you can take that desperation and exhaust it in the ritual. So that way at the end of it, you have peace and certainty. It is flawless. It's a flawless method. But anyway, so my marketing campaign, that's just an ongoing marketing campaign, is a ritual. It's the reality that I've taken. I've created a bit of a satire around it. I've amplified it to, like, this is not what my garage would look like if I didn't have a temple in here, But the whole thing helps the immersion of it. And so the people who do stop and go, wow, what's going on with this crazy guy? They're stopping, they're looking, they're responding. If I can make them do that, then the ritual is complete, the ritual is successful.
Yeah, exactly. Oh man. Another thing, just one time I was in like a metaphysical shop. I don't know where I'm pulling this from, but just the way that other people respond whenever you're doing workings and stuff. Once she told me, she was like, look, if you want to prosper, here's a quick, easy spell. or ritual that you can perform. When you hand people back their money, fold the cash and hand it back to them. I think it was fold side to them. And so that way the bills are folded and coming back to you. Does that make sense? And, I never really applied it, but she always did. And, she used to be located in my town in Wichita, Kansas, and then she moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma. And from what I hear, she's pretty successful down there in Tulsa, which kind of sucks that she's not here anymore because, like, here, I'm going to talk shit. Let me just talk shit. So we got 2 metaphysical shops here. One's called the White Dove. I really like. He's like really zen and yoga, and he's really chill. I really like his business. And the other one called the White Dove here. No, Moonstone, excuse me. Moonstone. Yeah, I don't like them whatsoever. There's so many people in this town who absolutely love and adore their shop. But, one time I went in there and I was really starting to come into my left-hand path. And, she's hella old. Like, she's older. She's a crone. I go in there and I'm buying a couple of things that I need to get to do some kind of working. And I ask her, I say, hey, I feel like something has just been clipped off, like I've been cut off. I was doing this, I've been working with Lucifer, and then there was this time period where, I got so distracted in my life where Lucifer was like, well, clearly it's not the time for you to be working with me, so I'm going to, talk to me later. We're done for now. And I'm just like, well, that was really devastating. So when he left, it felt like something just was cut, and I couldn't connect to my spiritual being as I was able to, and be able to, feel around in the astral, I guess. And I went to ask her about it, and she basically just told me everything that you would expect to hear from someone who doesn't. She basically told me, she was like, oh, well, you should have been expecting it, that these beings are there to deceive you. And I'm just like, are you fucking serious? So, like, and ever since then, and then I really started just noticing, like, her behaviors anytime I'd go into that store, because she just wants the fucking money. She's not really, this is the impression I get from her, that she's more greedy. She doesn't actually care about other people's spiritual path. And anytime I would go in there, she would, I don't know, like, assume I was some kind of an annoyance. And it was really frustrating because, one, I wasn't where I am today. I was trying to get to where I am. And I had this my supplies were coming from the shittiest piece of shit that I could ever get them from. And it fucking sucked. And I just had to call that out. Man, where am I going with this?
So here's, check this out. This is why I'm gonna give you a perfect example, because the Lucifer problem you had is not unique to you. It is actually something that's experienced with a lot of people. This is why my business is so much more successful than hers. So much more, is because I actually know what the fuck I'm talking about. All right. So Lucifer, when you start working with him, you fall in love with him. It doesn't matter, male, female, or whatever. You fall in love with the motherfucker. He becomes your father. He teaches you everything you could ever want to know. He comforts you. When shit goes south, which it almost always goes south when you're working with him, he's there to hold you and tell you how to get through it.
Let me jump on that.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So, man, like, whenever I first started working with him, he literally has that fatherly energy. Like, I remember, oh my God, sometimes I don't know what the fuck was going on, but man, I'd call on him and I'm just like, just put me to sleep. Like, I couldn't sleep, and just everything was going wrong. And I was like, just put me to sleep. And he fucking put me to sleep, because he has that energy where it feels like he can just sit there and rock you. And it's like, you feel like you're sucking on his tit because you're just a fucking baby to him. And he's just so nurturing. And then there's other times where, this was recent, where I'm just like, look, how do I get back on track? Like, I don't want to give up. Like help me out. Like, what do I need to do? And it's like, he took me somewhere and we're just walking through this hallway filled with like these torches on the wall. And he's just standing there walking with me, talking with me. And it's like, his energy is so fatherly, but it's so motherly. And it can be so fucking chaotic, or it could be like calmer than, a crick. It's fucking insane. Like, he's literally, the way I used to see him, or I still see him, is that he's literally like a void, but this void isn't empty, it's filled with everything. And like anything that is, you know, made like I even took it as far as like, you know, like space, like outer space, like, you know what, like new planets are formed, or, you know, something's being created, he already knows. Anything that we think about, he already knows, because he's like the embodiment of all knowledge. And I think that's what makes him, from my understanding, the most powerful being, is because he is literally knowledge. And for me, like how we were talking about how you know, like knowledge is key, you know, education is the stepstone to overcoming anything. So, you know, I literally see that as Lucifer. Yeah. I don't know where I'm going. I forgot where I'm going.
No, yeah. So you get to the point that once again you're in love with him. Like you're just your only hope is that he will be there like that forever in your life, and then he drops you.
Yeah, and he's not there, and it's fucking. Whenever it happened to me, I was fucking devastated, because it was like, well, fuck everything. Like I literally just like threw. I mean, I did it on the solar eclipse too. Like on the solar eclipse that we had a couple years ago, like the full eclipse. Man, that's the day I did it on. I got home from work, and I was like, man, shit's not going right. Let's talk about this. And he was like, yeah, now is not the time. And I like fucking tore apart like everything, like my whole setup, everything. I fucking tore it apart. I fucking went nuts. Oh man. And I was living with like my ex-boyfriend's parents at the time in that small town. She was like, holy shit. Like I was fucked up. Like I was really fucked up. Because it was so painful. You know, it was painful. Like I don't know how else to explain it, because it was just so painful, because it's like, wow, everything that you've worked for, everything that you've gone through with him, everything that you've confided in him with is just fucking gone. Like he just dipped. And man,
and not even to the point of like, you know, so like you've got these entities that'll be around you can feel them like that. And it's not just that he's not felt around you anymore, but it's like he is ignoring your phone calls, like yeah. he all of a sudden has completely removed himself for no real reason. And so I thought it was just me until I worked with enough people and got to know Lucifer even better.
You know,
that's what he does for everybody. And he just like, he seriously just ghosts you, and you're like, what the fuck? What did I do wrong? That's the question everybody asks. What did I do? And it's like, that was your next lesson from him.
Yeah, it's like he's leaving you for a reason. He wants you to learn something. In his absence, because he's like, look, I can teach you anything you want all fucking day long, but you need to learn how to teach yourself and not rely on me. And so I think that was a lesson that he taught me, was that one. And then I think what he was removing himself for, I definitely had learned. And I think, you know, even though he taught me that, sometimes I feel like I still slack on, I think, because I was becoming so much more involved with my human life, right? With, like I had gotten into a car accident, man, I was working 2 jobs to pay this lady. I fucking wrecked her car. And that was, and so, yeah, that was like $2,000 because she was driving like a 2018. And like, I mean, I barely scraped her fucking back bumper trying to park next to her. I mean, 2,000 right there. So, I mean, I was trying to pay that. I was working in a high school kitchen as a lunch lady, and like coming from, you know, one of the biggest cities in Kansas, going to like a small town that only has like a couple thousand people, you know, everybody in the kitchen had that good old boy syndrome, where it's like, hey, this chick's from the city, she don't know shit, even though I had more experience working in fast food and food than anyone else in the town. You know, just that bullshit. And it was, yeah, that fucking sucked, because when I was being harassed, that fucking good old boy syndrome. Everything else, when I was working at another job, that's where I started at, like at Dollar General. I was working over there. I really liked that. And because I liked the people over there better than I liked the school. But I mean, I was working 2 jobs. I really didn't have time for myself, and just to pay this lady off. And yeah, it just fucking sucked. It just sucked. And like life just sucked then, because I was so concerned with everything else going on. And then I had no one else to turn. Then I had no one to turn to whenever I would have just turned to Lucifer. So yeah, where was I going?
Yeah, I don't know. No, but yeah, that's like I said, the having that desperation and that hopelessness. So in this last 3 months of working with Abaddon, the hopelessness has been severe, and not in a bad way, but in a way like it's all fucked regardless of what we do, and so you might as well just do whatever you want. And that's one of the things that was actually really liberating for me with working with Abaddon. Is he's like, none of it matters. Like, what do you mean? He goes, imagine, what if magic wasn't real? What if the things that you see as being effects from your rituals, that's just another hallucination. In fact, your entire reality is a hallucination. So hallucinate whatever you want. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'm still going to do magic, because even if it's a hallucination, it's a really damn good one. It's paying the hallucination is making really good hallucinations for me to enjoy. So he's like, all right, you're onto it. Like, you don't take any of it seriously, but take it all very, very seriously. And it's like, oh man, there's such a dichotomy there of that you hit that point of hopelessness and of desperation, and the breaking point is really, especially when you hit mundane circumstances that turn against you, like you build up the anxiety and the anticipation of like, what do I have to do? How do I fix this problem? And the problem is always solved as soon as you relax and just let it go. And that's the hardest thing to do. But that is one of Lucifer's lessons for sure. Is
man, I literally feel like my life is just like, hey, if I don't worry about it, it's gonna go like better. Like, I remember, oh man, like I feel like that's like my life motto, where it's like, hey, if you're so worried about something, everything's gonna fall into place and it's gonna be okay. Because if I worry about it, then it's just gonna go fucking nuts, and then I'll be fucking nuts. So if I just let loose, it will be fine. And yeah, that's how I feel about most things. Like, oh, I remember getting out of high school, I was like, I don't want to go to college because college is going to put me in debt, and I don't even know what I would go in to study for. So then I was trying to join the military, and that didn't fucking work out because, yeah, it just didn't work out. I don't really want to talk about that because it's getting into like a lot of personal shit. So basically, I ran my fucking mouth, and Maps was like, yeah, bro, nah. So then, like, I was so fucking, like, so worried about it. I was just like, man, this shit's not gonna fucking work out, and it didn't. And then my dad was like, look, you're gonna go to college. I'll help you out. I'll help you pay for it and stuff. You're gonna go. Then I had to decide, well, what am I gonna go to school for? So I didn't really worry too much about it, but I really wanted to do something medical because I'm actually studying to be a dental hygienist. I don't know if I told you that. So, like, I'm really just sitting there thinking, like, what am I going to study for? Because my dad wanted me to go to school for, like, composites to work on aircraft, because Kansas, is air capital. So we do a lot of airplane parts and stuff here. But I was like, yeah, no, that's not me. Math isn't my forte. And I've always sucked at math my whole life. But, man, like, ever since I've worked with Lucifer, I really feel like anything I learn is really thanks to him, because I really do picture him as the embodiment of knowledge. And so whenever I'm sitting there in class or something and I'm having trouble understanding something, and then whenever I really start fucking learning something, I'm just like, I immediately, I come home, I turn to Lucifer, and I'm just like, hey man, look at this, I'm understanding something. And like, oh man, a lot of times I use that. I get really creative when it comes to offerings, because a lot of times I'll actually write down really complex math problems and I'll give that to him as an offering. I don't know, man, just like, I just was like, I'll go to school. I'm going to let this go. And I'm in school and shit's going well. And, I feel like, Yeah.
Huh. So I do these like YouTube live chat things. And like at least once a month, I'll jump on and just have a live chat conversation for an hour. It's fun. I do enjoy it. While I was working with Lucifer, well, like 6 months ago, maybe 8 months ago, I think closer to 6, I was YouTube would start changing things, like they always do. They're upgrading their system, and whatever changes they made it super frustrating to get on YouTube, to manage like my because I've got like an encoder app that I've got to start up and got to make sure that that's got all the right settings. And I had this thing in that I noticed in high school, like in 9th or 10th grade, where math problems would give me anxiety, that I would start just like having a hard time breathing when I'm doing math. Yeah, and I started getting the same feeling like when I'm trying to set up my YouTube stuff to do a live chat. Like I would spend an hour in front of my computer trying to make sure the settings are all right, and then like at the last minute just having shit just not work. And so I get with my partner Timothy. I'm on the phone with him as I'm like trying to figure this out, and I get 100 and some people that are waiting in queue for me to come online. They're going, "Hey, what's going on with this guy? I thought he was a living god. I can't figure this shit out." I'm like, "Oh man, the pressure is freaking on right now." But so I get on the phone with him, and I'm like, "Dude, I can't figure this out. I can't make it work. I don't know that I can use YouTube. The thing is, it's broken. It's fucked. It's not for me." And he's all, whoa there, buddy. So the first thing you need to do, he's like, I need you to stop and to tell yourself, you got this. You are capable of doing this. None of the instructions I give you are going to work until you acknowledge that. It's like, oh, well, this is actually, this is what I try to teach people. And indeed, like I use YouTube. It's so stupid. I use YouTube to teach people things. They have YouTube videos that teach you how to use their software. Like like it's all of a sudden, as soon as I was able to make the transition from I can't to, oh, I guess I can, I just need to figure it out. As soon as I made that transition, the whole thing turned around. That's one of Lucifer's absolute things that he imparts, is you actually can. Whatever it is, you can do it.
Yeah, I agree there. Oh man. Oh, I just love talking to you so much. Because like it's so good to actually sit down and like talk to somebody who has like the same kind of like knowledge as you do, the same interests, and just sit here and just talk. Because like, oh man, like I mean I do that shit with my friend Dream. We'll start like just bullshitting, talking about different shit, and then we pull someone else into it, and we're like, hey, what do you fucking think about this? And then they give their input, and it's like, man, you go for hours and you just randomly talk about nothing of important, but then it is important.
When I'll tell you what, when I say I tell you what a lot, that's one of the things I start noticing that especially when I'm doing videos, I'll repeat like certain phrases, like I'll tell you what. I need to say but it seems like a lot of times when I'm having conversations with people specifically about these topics, that most people come at it with like their belief system. This is what they believe. This is how reality fits into their box, and so that's how it needs to be presented. And one of the things I've loved about the conversations we've had so far is that I think both of us are open enough to all possibilities that it allows for some interesting free flow of ideas. I don't like being called a guru or whatever, because it's like it's all fluid. I'm still figuring it out, and I'm very excited to share what I learn with everybody. But when I get into the point of being like, oh, I'm the authority, then the whole thing falls apart, because then it's not fun to just explore different ideas and consider what else can be.
I feel that. Like, oh my God, like that's something that I seriously hate about those fucking Facebook groups, because you go in there, oh man, all right, so me and my friend Dream, we'll go into some groups where it's like, oh, we're accepting of all paths, etc. And we'll go up in there and we'll like post shit, because like she likes writing articles. I've written a few, for my page or whatever or something. And I post those up in there, and I'm just like, hey, what's this path? Oh, what's this thing? What's the taboo of this? And, I toss those things in there, and it gets people in the group fucking talking, because you got the people who are like, hey, this is some cool shit. Let's do some more about this. I like this. And then you got the people who are in there that are all like, Threefold's going to come back at you. And it's like, why ain't I dead yet if Threefold's happening? Like, come on. And Man, it's hilarious because these groups that are all like, oh, we're accepting of all paths, they kick us out randomly. They delete our shit and they kick us out. And it's fucking funny because they're so like set in their own ways, and then they claim that they're open to all things when they're really fucking not. And it's so fucking funny because it's happened to us like 3 different fucking times. And oh, it's so fucking funny, especially when the 3 of us get together. It's me, Dream, and a cult kitten. Man, when we all get together, it's fucking hilarious because oh man, we just meddle with everybody else in the group. It's hysterical because I don't know. I think it's funny because we know and they don't understand and they refuse to understand, so it kind of entertains us and it gets us like, man, why the fuck are they being so stupid? But you know, that's how we get.
Yeah. No. So that's. I love it when like so Belial was a good example. I threw out my releases about Belial a year ago or more, and started promoting it and putting my information, my thoughts out about it. Now, the one thing that every single one of these spirits want is they want their name to be spoken. They want people to know about them, because the more people that know about them, the more of a hold they have in the human consciousness, and the more they have a hold of this reality.
Yeah.
And so I put out this my information, my understandings of Belial, and then people start going, whoa, this guy is wrong. Look at what Eric Koetting is saying. He's not even saying his name right. It's not Belial, it's Belial. Now, the conversation starts going, and then all of a sudden, people are speaking his name. They're doing exactly what Belial himself asked me to do: get people to speak my name. And it doesn't matter if they agree with me or not. That's not I'm not here to make people agree with me. I'm here for a much higher work than that, and that's to bring recognition.
So what do you think about spirits that don't want their name spoken? Like, do you think that there's spirits out there who just want to die and be left alone? Because like, man, okay, so I remember last time I was talking about a deity that I was working with. His name's Sepe. He's from Incan origins. He's the Incan god of the underworld of death. And literally, like, I try to work with him, and he just seems so disinterested. Like, where he's like, okay, I don't know if he knows how to. I don't know. Like, it's just because I really wanted to work with him because I really wanted to like dive into the Incan culture because I've always appreciated it in some way. I've always been interested in it, and like I try to work with him, and you know, I try to like dig and find research, and I try to understand him, and he just seems so disinterested. Like, he's just like, okay, well, you can do whatever you want to do, but you know what I mean?
So that could be there are spirits of different systems that only want to work with people within that system.
Yeah.
And so I wonder if there's all right. So for instance, let's look at Haitian Badan, right? So in the Loa of Badan, they the things that you can use to call them are their symbols that are made in cornmeal, and then the offering of rum. And I'm like, well, that's kind of weird, can I use flour instead? No, it's got to be cornmeal. Okay. What about whiskey? Whiskey's okay for some spirits, but in general, it's rum.
Mm-hmm.
And this is weird. Like, it doesn't. Why does it matter? Why does it matter? Is there something inherent in the rum or the cornmeal? And just common sense and a tiny bit of research shows that cornmeal and rum are staples in Haiti. And so the spirits have been fed this for long enough that that's what they prefer.
Yeah.
And so when the spirits have that preference that's built up about only working with people who are initiated or have a certain lineage or whatever, that does tend to become integrated in the spirit. So one thing does it just want to be left alone? Probably not.
What I kind of ponder at is because he's a spirit of death, right? So he's I assume he's like the anthropomorphication of like death itself, kind of like a Grim Reaper, I guess. I don't know. So like it makes me wonder if he's like disinterested because oh God, I just don't know, because like I've read that he, you know, he really likes children, like he likes babies, like he's fascinated by babies. That he likes to actually come up and like watch them when they sleep or when they play, like he likes babies. And then I've also read, you know, he's like Hades in a way, where he's king of the underworld, and this is also where he got the name Diablo, more like, you know, like Satan, because he tortures the souls in the underworld. But he brings death, pestilence, you know, illness. And, you know, I really just wonder, because, like, I don't know if it's because he doesn't want me to see him as some, like, living being. I wonder if it's because he wants me to see him as death. But I don't know. Like, because he's just so disinterested. And I don't know if it's because he doesn't want me working with him at all. Because the way I see that is, like, whenever you're saying, oh, well, these deities prefer, you know, people that they've always worked with. Well, I'm just like, well, that's kind of stupid, because, you know, because we're not only here, we're, like you said, how we're infinite beings. So like that would mean that our souls would basically be reincarnated and reused. So who's to say that I wasn't Incan in a past life? Like who's to say that I wasn't like Chinese, or, you know, Indian or Canadian? Like, you know, and so it's like, so what does it matter that, you know, my physical body says this is what I am? It should really be more focused on, well, this is what my energy body is. I just
so there is a, if you're so this is where the conversation about shape shifting, I guess, comes into play, is that you appear to be who you believe yourself to be, and so saying, what if I in a past life was you know, Haitian, born in Haiti, raised in Haiti, and I was a priest in Haiti. Okay, that's cool. That was in a past life. I have no memory of it, nor does my body signal that. And yeah, so this is an interesting thing, because it also ties into what seems to me to be a movement against gender identification, which is totally interesting and cool. Not something I relate to, because I feel very man, like not manly, but I feel like I'm a man. Like I like to go lift weights and shoot guns and shit like that, you know. And and so a lot of that is just like hardwired somehow into who I am. And now that can shift. And when I've done goddess work is really interesting, because it's such a switch for me to not only like channel information from a goddess, but to feel myself becoming so completely feminine, and my voice changing, and it is nutty how deep and how intense it can get. But yeah, so you can make that shift and shift yourself into, you know, an Incan in order to do that. But there is something that's necessary for some sort of immersion, that to go from being you know, white middle class male to being anything else. I've got to make, once again, it's alchemy. It's all alchemy. You can't just make one process stop and the other start. You have to let it evolve. And so start integrating. If let's say Incan, so if you're going to align yourself with a particular Incan deity or spirit, that you start to incorporate aspects of that culture into your life, into your, even maybe your clothes or jewelry. You start to engage in different aspects of that ceremony or meditation or practice. So you're actually immersing yourself in what it would be like to be in that culture and in that system. And then there does get to be a breakthrough point of becoming it, rather than, and it's not a matter of like fake it till you make it type, but it's like you experience it and immerse yourself in it until it becomes you. And
yeah,
and that
like the one in Rome, do as the Romans do, basically.
Yeah. And find it out. So I put together this ritual that was based on Mayan rituals, and I studied for months for this one ritual, and this is long before I did any kind of a public presentation of anything. I wrote an article about this that I eventually did get published in a little magazine that I spent months researching it because it needed to be a full immersion into the Mayan, and not the Mayan system as a whole, but into this particular ritual and its use. And this was the calling forth of the vision serpent. And so the idea is that there's this vision serpent that you can make rise up out of the incense smoke, or not incense smoke, but smoke that's made out of little pieces of paper that's soaked in your blood. And the vision serpent rises up and swallows you and takes you into the other side, the netherworld. And so I spent a lot of time in the local library, just like pulling open these books and reading the Popol Vuh and reading everything I can get my hands on about the Mayans, about their culture, who their gods are. Started developing it. The ritual itself is, I mean, it's really, really basic. You call the watchtowers is what I guess in Western culture they're called, but the cardinal directions through the different gods that are involved in the Mayan system. And once you can feel them there, you take you can do this in a few ways. You can take a piece of obsidian or another sharp rock and sharpen it to a blade sharpness, and slice yourself from your shoulder to your hip, your left shoulder to your right hip, and gather the blood on little pieces of paper, put those in a bowl and light that on fire. You can also get the blood from piercing your tongue, piercing your labia or your foreskin, or piercing your lip. So those are like the acceptable ways of gathering that blood from yourself. I chose to cut myself from shoulder to hip, and then burn the pieces of paper, and then the smoke absolutely formed in the astral, as people might say. This serpent that, like, it was kind of like, you know those 4th of July little fireworks that you light, and it forms like a worm that comes out of it. It was crazy like that, like it was just forming out of the smoke. It came up and then just devoured me, and I went black, fell on the ground. Just, I don't know where I went. I don't know what I experienced. Came out of it and went, whoa, like I guess it worked, and I guess it did exactly what I needed to know and learn and have passed to me was passed to me. But the preparatory immersion, it can't be overlooked. Like if you're trying to work with that one spirit, and it's especially if that one spirit is avoiding you, then there are probably preparatory steps that you need to take to fully immerse yourself. So that way it's not a matter of like, oh, well, I may have been an Incan in my last life. It's like, no, I'm a voodoo priest right now, and right. I know it, and everything else is going to know it.
It's not like I went in there thinking like, oh, I'm just going to, work with this deity and be like right off the bat. It was like, I'm interested in this guy. I want to learn more about him. I don't know. Like, yeah. I don't know. I really don't know what piqued my interest in him, but it just did. I don't know.
And then let's look at, like, if it's a spirit of death as well, then death would avoid somebody who's young and healthy. Death would.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I also think, man. I just don't know. I don't know. Cause I mean, like, I guess that's what brought my interest into him, because it's like, I don't know. I like learning different things, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. There's a necromancer out there that is pretty amazing. I'm going to say this, and if she listens to this, she's probably going to talk all kinds of trash about it, but she is batshit crazy. This is Lila Wendell. And she is, I say that she's batshit crazy with the utmost respect, because it takes a lot of insanity to go to the depths you need to go to really activate this. But she does teach, if you want to work with any death essence, you can't just do it casually. You've got to actually surround yourself by death, by human bodies, if you can, by sleeping with a skull in your bed, or finding ways to fully immerse yourself. Sleeping with human carcasses is a really powerful way of getting into that immersion. But these are all fulfilling like the elementary principle of preparatory immersion. That the ritual it's funny because when we talk about magic, like we for the most part we're thinking about the ritual that we perform, right? Well, the ritual is just like it's an enactment of a preparatory processes that's gone on for months, sometimes years, and it's a catalyst for other processes that are going to occur for months or years after. And so it's just this like little tiny point in time, without the preparation and without the follow-up afterwards, it's all useless. Like you might as well not even do the ritual if you're not going to prepare yourself and you're not going to follow up on it.
Right.
So yeah.
Because then it's just like, well, what are you even doing this for?
Yeah, and at that point it's just psychodrama, which is fun. It's a really interesting psychodrama to immerse yourself in. But once you connect the dots with like fully throwing yourself into it as if it's 100% real and needed, then it once again it's flawless.
Yeah. Yeah. Well. Good.
I guess that's it, huh?
We went to one topic and then we end in the next, and I was just like, man, do we go for more for this? Or?
No, you got. I do think I'm finally looking at the clock and thinking I've got to get.
It's like 1:30 here, man. Well, I guess we'll see you next time, man.
Yeah. No, hit me up at any point. I'm always happy to come on and chat with you, and let's think about. Here, let's throw it out to the listeners. What would you guys like us to talk about?
Yeah, what do you literally like? Oh man, I've been meaning to do this one episode, but man, man, just I've been meaning to do like enchantments and
a memory spell.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't fucking know, man. Maybe it's stay on the fucking track spell.
Well, I'll tell you what. So right now, we're doing this interview on the 11th of March, and we've been in a really, really intense Mercury retrograde cycle right now. And people are having issues with communication, with memory, with relationships, with business ventures. This is a really intense Mercury retrograde. So that's a way of not blaming yourself. It's not it's not my fault that I can't remember shit.
I need that. I mean, like, sorry guys, it's not me. It's just this month,
Right, exactly. So, but no. For the listen, like, do you actually like when you throw these out on YouTube? You go check the comments.
Oh hell yeah! Oh my god.
That's so dangerous. That's like a minefield.
Man, dude. Okay, so the comments on our first video, it was crazy because it was either people being like, man, she just needs to shut up and stop interrupting, and I'm just like, yeah, like, to be honest, like the first episode we did together, I was hella fucking anxious. Like, I didn't want you to think of me like as less of a practitioner, so I was trying to like put out, like my experiences, because it's like, hey, I don't want to just come up on here and look like a total fucking tool to you. You know what I mean? And then I got those other people who are like, hey, this is some cool shit. And then I got people who would actually message me on my page or on my Facebook personally and be like, hey, yeah, I like this and that. And then I do get a lot of feedback from like my other videos. And half of the time I'll go through my videos and I'll actually ask people what they want to learn about. And I got other people sending me stuff like, like the other day, one of my frequent listeners, she messaged me all the time. She's like, hey, check out this video. What do you think? And I'm sitting here looking at it, and I get in like a minute and 30 seconds into it. And I'm just like, this chick is fucking bullshit. And it was like 30 minutes long, and I look at it for like a minute and 30 seconds, and I message her back, and I'm just like, fuck all this shit. Because she was, this girl, she just, the video that she sent me was some girl talking about Luciferianism, Satanism, and the left-hand path. And she was like, look, it's all like all together. They're not even individual separate paths because they're all little branches of each other. And I'm just like, well, you just fucking discredited everything that you say because they're clearly not the fucking same. And she was like, oh, they all have their like one world religion aspect, and it's this and it's this dogma. And I'm just like, yeah, fuck this, dude. Like, not every fucking, like, it's funny because when you meet Christians, you're like, oh, well, you practice the same thing. But when you meet another Luciferian, it's like, well, how do you practice? because it's so different for everyone who practices it. And I'm just like, man, this bitch doesn't know shit. Just fuck this. That's what I told her. And she was like, oh, wow, hey. And so I think she's kind of advocating for me to do a video about Luciferianism, how I practice it and within myself, and really put that out there, because it's so different from my friend Occult Kitten, who's also another Luciferian. My shit's so different from hers that, you know, you can look at it and it's like black and white. There's, yeah.
Well, and yeah, no, that's it's absolutely that is something that within the left-hand path uniquely, that your differences are actually celebrated rather than like used against you. So it's like rather than like, oh, you don't believe like I believe, it's a matter of like, oh wow, you found a completely unique, different way of maybe applying this or understanding it. And
right.
yeah, no, that's very cool.
My
very
favorite,
cool.
yeah, my favorite instance, and whenever I was talking with some other like left-hand practitioners, was the topic of, is Lucifer and Satan the same person? And like for me, I differentiate them because everything that I knew that was from Christianity, I just threw it the fuck away. I was like, no, we're done with this. And so when I see Satan, Lucifer, and the devil, they're all three separate. The devil is a title, Satan, Lucifer is separate. And I was talking to some other guy, just pure conversation, that, you know, that most people would be like, oh, well, you're just getting into arguments on Facebook. It's like, no, man, I actually want to like hear your view. Like, what do you think? Like, why do you think this? And he was like, oh, well, he gave his opinion. I can't really remember what it was, but I was like, well, this is why I don't see them as the same. And at first he thought I was like talking shit on Satan, but I'm just like, no, Satan is to me the pure indulgence and primal energy of human nature. And I don't see Lucifer being that way, because I see Lucifer as all knowledge and all knowing. And so I was like, well, that's why I separate them. But I couldn't remember. I can't tell you why he thought they were, you know, two heads on the same coin.
That's actually like a really good observation of the two. That one, we like I said, that the way that I've come to understand Satan and the way that I work with him is as the Satan of the apocalypse, which is the serpent that rises up from the abyss. And yeah, in the Canaanites knew him as Yom Nehar, and it was the uncontrollable force. And so it's like, it is that primal urge, the uncontrollable part of ourselves, the uncontrollable part of nature, whereas Lucifer tends to embody like the mindfulness, the wisdom, the ability to maybe step back from the impulse and say, okay, what's really needed here?
Right.
And so they are like polar opposites. People, once again, we can't put our own like social order and our own even biologically, you and I are separate beings. That creates a really intense division that's really hard to understand a being existing without. And so these beings do exist without having that division. Like once again, they're all the same general power of darkness flowing forth, taking different manifestations. And so, I mean, you could say Satan and Lucifer are the same being just as much as you could say you and I are the same being, because we all are embodiments of this central source. Okay, that's a stretch, but we can say it.
I wish I could remember why he thought, or you know, his thinking. I wish I did, because I feel like you would find it really interesting, because I thought it was really interesting, but I just, for the life of me, I just can't remember. I guess I didn't really think it was important because it wasn't my understanding, you know. But like, man, I mean, it really was fucking cool, and a lot of people do see Lucifer that way, and I don't really understand it, man. I'm probably gonna have to dig it up and send it to you, because I think you'll find it interesting. But for the most part, it sounds like that you're agreeing with me. So
yeah, I think so. Yeah, that's really what's important, though, right? So, but no, okay, cool. So yeah, so to throw that out to your audience, then post on this video or whatever to what you want to hear us talk about. I'm happy to jump on, probably maybe in April or May, and we'll jump back on another one. So throw out some suggestions, because we could just sit and talk about anything. So give us a topic.
Literally. Maybe we should do like something live together. Who fucking knows?
That'd be cool.
That would be cool. Oh man. All right. Well, guys, if you got any suggestions, what do you want to see? You know, hit up the comments on this video. Go to the Facebook page. You know, which way to the broom? Y'all know it. EA knows it. That's good. All right.
Awesome.
So we'll see you next time, guys. Bye.